Here in Paris today, among all of you highly connected tech people, it is easy to forget a very shocking figure. In 2017, almost 1 in 2 humans, around 4 billion individuals, had no internet access. Does that seem possible to everyone here? It is hard to believe, but it is true. Almost half of the world's population doesn't have internet access. Based on current trends, 40% will still be offline in 2025, and it could take until 2060 for everyone to have internet access. I would like to talk about these people today and to share with you my personal beliefs, which are what inspired my book, Human Web. In Africa, 80% of the population does not have internet access. By 2050, a quarter of the world's population will be African, and 40% of the world's children under the age of 5 will live on the African continent. How will they be able to break the cycle of poverty if they cannot be informed? How will they be able to learn, access health services, sell their products? How will they be able to join the global economy without internet access? We all know about the incredible advances made possible by the development of digital technology. But let me give you a few examples of life-changing digital services in the developing world. Beyond connectivity by relying on their assets, operators are offering today truly innovative digital services. Mobile money is one of the most striking examples. In Africa, mobile operators are leading the way to financial inclusion. Today, in many sub-Saharan countries, the majority of the adult population uses mobile money accounts instead of bank accounts. We are building interoperable systems between our networks, such as Mowali in Africa, a joint venture between MTN and Orange that makes it possible to send money between 100 million mobile money accounts at a very low cost and without delays. This service, which is available in 22 countries, could eventually benefit more than 300 million customers. Financial inclusion is a powerful tool to fight poverty. It brings together insurance, credit, and other economic instruments. But we can and we should go faster to include really everyone. The internet and innovative services are contributing to the emergence of modern public health access at a time when national governments are not yet in a position to make this happen. In Dakar, capital of Senegal, a mobile app platform has been created to facilitate voluntary blood donations by linking blood donors and blood transfusion centers. In Abidjan, Ivory Coast, an app created by an Ivorian engineer helps improve vaccination coverage through an online vaccination record. In Rwanda, in Central Africa, an app available in each village by means of text messages is improving how pregnancies and infant health are monitored. Simple text messages have proved to be effective in reminding people with HIV to take their life-saving medication. For an African farmer, accessing the internet is not just about going online. It means knowing how much rice is being sold for, tracking information about rainfall or endemic plant diseases, and finding out when the best time to sow crops is. It can really change their life, allowing them to move from subsistence agriculture, increase their production, and sell in a local or global market. The spread of e-commerce offers an opportunity to fight poverty in remote areas. But a lot has yet to be done when you compare China with our friend Jack Ma, where 8 million business people, a third of them women, use an electronic business platform to sell products nationally and export them to 120 countries, and Africa, where the platforms are too weak still to underpin ambitious regional investment programs. The African startup Jumia, an e-commerce platform supported from the beginning by Orange, was recently listed on the New York Stock Exchange to extend its network with the ambition of transforming e-commerce on the continent. Internet access is the first step towards giving people access to digital services. Lack of access is not simply about being unable to access the internet. It is a question of the risk these people run of becoming increasingly marginalized from society when it comes to the economy, employment, education, health, and democracy. 4 billion people have no internet access, but there are two very different issues for 800 million of them and for the other 3.2 billion. While the reach of internet, mainly mobile, has expanded significantly in recent years, thanks to operators, there is still a coverage gap of over 800 million people who live in areas that are not covered by 3G plus networks. But there is a much bigger usage gap, with more than 3.2 billion people living in areas covered by networks, but who are not using internet services. Evidence shows that 3/4 of the digital divide is not a coverage issue. But there is still the last billion or 800 million people who are not yet covered by any networks. At the end of 2018, 44% of the world's uncovered population was in sub-Saharan Africa, while China and the US were home to 14 million and 3.2 million people living outside of 3G coverage areas, respectively. In Europe, the number is still 20 million. This could be considered usual telecom business, but it is not. Expanding coverage to these populations is, above all, an economic challenge. Areas without coverage are typically rural zones with low population densities, low per capita income levels, and less developed or non-existent infrastructure. It can cost up to twice as much to deploy new base stations in rural areas, while revenue expectations can be up to 10 times less than in their urban equivalent. We telecom operators are working to cover most of these areas in efficient ways, to expand the reach of commercially sustainable networks as much as possible by driving down deployment costs through further technical innovation in key areas such as power, backhaul, and low-cost base station technologies. Smart investment tools such as national coverage maps should be largely used to drive efficient investments. But we cannot do it alone. To make network operations sustainable for the last billion, we need governments to support us by reducing policy and regulatory barriers to deployment, by creating pro-investment environments, and by also considering new sources of financing and models relying on international lenders. The Spectrum New Deal in France is a great example of a partnership between the government and the private sector with clear objectives for better coverage. The last billion is an affordability and economic development issue. A strong partnership between operators, governments, and financial institutions is needed for the 21st century digital highways to ensure connectivity as the way to achieve the development goals of fighting poverty, providing quality education, decent work, and economic growth. Out of the 4 billion people who have no internet access, 3.2 billion are yet covered by networks. They are everywhere in developed and, of course, developing countries. In China, the usage gap is 41% of the population. And in the USA, it is 23%. In Europe, the usage gap is 26% of the population. In sub-Saharan Africa, it is 41%, and it grows to 56% in South Asia. The usage gap is a strong reminder of the social, cultural, and generational divides in our societies. If you cannot buy a smartphone, you cannot address internet. Affordable handsets are a first condition. Available energy is another condition. Lack of skills to access services is one more barrier. If you cannot read and write, it is very difficult to access information on the internet. And if you don't have a bank account, it becomes difficult to sell or buy anything online. For the elderly, it is not necessarily obvious how to use basic services such as Skype or WhatsApp. The digital transformation of our societies brings more opportunities for the connected, but makes digital illiteracy the new frontier of inclusion. Closing the usage gap is a much more complex issue, but also a bigger opportunity. We are talking once again about 3.2 billion people in the world. It is also clearly a shared responsibility. We believe that enabling a positive and people-focused digital future requires constructive collaboration between all the stakeholders: governments, the mobile industry, adjacent industries, the development community, and international organizations have all a stake in this digital future. We have established our vision of the digital future we want, identifying the common set of outcomes we must all strive for. Innovative solutions are helping to close the usage gap. For affordable devices, a light operating system solution by the startup Keynote has made it possible to create cheaper smartphones. Orange has been partnering with Keynote to create Sansa, a $20 mobile phone, the world's cheapest internet-ready phone, which is already available in 3 countries in Africa: Cameroon, Mali, and Ivory Coast. Keynote is also massively used in India by Jio Reliance. PayJoy is another startup supported by Orange, offering an adapted solution for people who don't have access to credit, giving them access to smartphones. But I do believe that we can go much, much faster. Innovations in sustainable, low-cost energy solutions are already available and could be deployed on a larger scale. Orange has chosen to contribute to the challenge of the electrification of the continent. The group engages all its infrastructures alongside energy producers to provide a multi-service digital experience for the supply of African households with connected solar home systems, smart meters, and prepayment of electricity by controlled monthly payments via Orange Money, the mobile banking service. Already more than 15,000 homes are electrified with Orange in 7 countries in Africa. Last, regarding the skills issue, some answers are already being provided by artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence providing local language, voice recognition, embedded in Senza, the smartphone, the $20 smartphone, allows illiterate people to access internet. What a great example of what artificial intelligence can do to really improve lives. We can certainly do better for those who need it more. Governments, foundations, and non-governmental organizations can do more to achieve a dramatic improvement in education through digital technology. The Orange Foundation alone has created over 500 digital schools in 12 countries and 532 establishments providing access to education in the most deprived areas. More than 130,000 children can access hundreds of essential pieces of content and books that are on the school syllabus by using tablets. These programs are designed in partnership with the Ministry of Education in each country. Digital education is essential to keep up with the pace of population growth in Africa. All these innovative solutions providing relevant answers can be scaled up through appropriate partnerships between us, big companies, with a local presence near the customers everywhere, and innovative startups that are looking for clients. As the CEO of Orange, a global operator active in 28 countries in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, I am striving every day to close this gap and achieve connectivity everywhere. But I am convinced that this is not enough. This is the reason why this year I also made a commitment as the chairman of the board of GSMA, which is the worldwide organization of 750 telecom operators. My dear friends, the figures tell us that the digital divide is about much more than just digital technology. One of the effects the internet has is that it magnifies inequalities. And the most vulnerable sections of the population are the worst affected. Those who suffer from unemployment and isolation and whose level of education is low. But there is no way back. The more digital access becomes a vital component of daily life, the greater people's demand for it will be, and the less acceptable they will find it not to be connected. And they are right. It is our role to prevent frustrations from boiling over and to ensure disparities in development don't reach unacceptable proportions. I am sharing my belief through GSMA and other forums with leaders from all around the world. Together, we can all step up the pace of providing internet access. Of course, telecom operators have a huge responsibility to provide connectivity all over the world, and in this regard, Orange and the GSMA stand firmly on the side of digital inclusion. Action on a grand scale has yet to be taken, a global framework on a par with the stakes must be found. Connecting the planet will require mobilization not only by private operators, but also by suppliers, politicians, and states, and international bodies such as the United Nations, the World Bank, or the African Union, considering new sources of financing and models relying on international lenders. So, I am calling on everyone to work together, to innovate and explore new ways of connecting the world and overcoming the digital divide. And let's be clear, we are not talking about an act of charity. I am convinced that the collective benefit that will emerge by enabling several billion people to use the web and by disseminating data will be more than worth the investment required to achieve it. Let's ensure we deliver on the promise of a worldwide human web. Thank you.
Mesdames et Messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jeremy Wright, the Secretary of State for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport of the United Kingdom.